Welcome to MSP 1337. I'm your host, Chris Johnson, a show dedicated to cybersecurity challenges, solutions, a journey together, not alone. MSP 1337. I'm joined this week by a special guest, David Shipley of, how do you say that? Beauceron?
Beauceron, you got it. First
Ooh,
time.
Nice. Got it first time. Oh my goodness, that's rare. And you recently published some research around phishing simulation, and to just share with the audience real quick, and then I'll let you kind of tell us about the why. I was in the camp of saying that phishing simulations don't work. And we all know that what's true about phishing simulations is they actually do work at catching someone. At some point, they will catch you, right? At some point, we can build a significant or a significant enough call to action that someone, me included, will likely click on it. And I think that was you acknowledged that in the recent, you were on CyberWire Daily, and you acknowledged that as being, yes, that's true. And this is where I wanted you to share is, tell us what you uncovered when you tackled this research project.
And apologies, I don't mean to correct, just for editing purposes.
Please correct me.
Cybersecurity Today, not
CyberWire. Oh, that's
CyberWire.
right, Cybersecurity Today.
That which is completely fine. So first, I'll give a little bit of background about me. So I'm an accidental cyber guy, right? I was started as a Canadian soldier. I was a tank driver and tank gunner. I was a newspaper reporter, the digital marketer for a university. It got hacked. I was one of the ones who spotted it, helped deal with it. And that was Mother's Day 2012. And I was working at this university, and I got the security awareness program responsibility dropped on me. And I was sillily thinking that because this is a university, everybody wants to learn new things all the time. That was 100% not correct. And we had to build a way to not just pass knowledge on, but to actually motivate people to want to acquire that learning. And that's where Beauceron was born. And Beauceron, by the way, is a breed of sheepdog from northern France.
Nice.
And it's named in honor of something that we call the sheepdog effect. When we turn people from the passive targets of cyber criminals into the active defenders. And so we're going to call ourselves Sheepdog Security, but the name was taken, and saying I'm David Shipley from Sheepdog Security is really hard. I've practiced it a lot.
I bet.
So we've been on this journey. We launched as a company in 2017. We are now 1,400 customers, including global banks, national telecommunications organizations, 1 million plus users. And for the last 5 years, we've been really committed to data-driven decision-making and empirical research. Like where can we advance the science of these issues? So to get back to your original question, like, do phishing simulations work? Yes. But here are the caveats. So number one, can phishing simulation training alone reduce all risk of the organization? Or more specifically, can I get to 0 clicks? No. And we'll talk about all the data that we have and why. I can tell you getting to 0 clicks, other than just gaming the system, isn't going to work. And even then, I have literally seen experiments where someone sent the fish that said, this is a phishing test. This is the link. Don't click on it. And someone still clicked. So 0 click is never the goal.
That way. Like, to be clear, when the internet was built, to have it function according to what the parameters are of the internet, if you don't click, do you gain anything from having access to it?
Exactly. But what good do they do? So first of all, we know attackers use this methodology still to attack organizations. And it's still 2025, and phishing is still a huge thing. And according to Microsoft's brand new digital defense report that just dropped, and this one, Chris, this one floored me. They're saying that AI-derived or improved phishing templates are 4.5 times more effective when it comes to click-through rates. And what they said is the average phish that they see has got about a 12% click-through rate, which seems really high. And now they're saying AI-driven ones can be as high as the mid-50s, which is nuts. That's super bad news for everybody. So it's still it's a reasonable threat. When your employees know that you conduct regular, and this is the key part, it can't be once a year and it's not optimal once a quarter, but regular randomized monthly phishing tests, they slow down. Because what you've done is two things. Number one, you've created a traffic cop effect. And the traffic cop effect is, we know there's traffic cops, so maybe we're going to moderate our speeding. And we'll get back to why moderating speed matters a lot when it comes to phishing. The second thing is people will believe that, hey, this is something the organization tracks and is matters to them. So I better pay a little bit more attention. And this is what's known as the Hawthorne effect. And this came from the field of sociology, where a group of researchers at a factory noticed employee productivity surged. And they're like, well, we haven't changed anything yet. People under observation change their behaviors. So the fact that this becomes an observed behavior reduces that risk. And so that's really, really important on that side. But here's the important part. Nobody responsibly on our side of the industry, the security awareness, behavior change, and culture program industry, ethically, is ever going to say, you don't need email filters. You don't need MDR. You don't need browser-based technology controls. You absolutely should have a good structured defense in depth. But stuff will still get by. I mean, literally this week, Microsoft reverse logicked and was tagging legitimate emails as blocked and was allowing phishes to go through because of a programming error. So bad things still happen.
Well, and we're also seeing where those same security tools, assuming they worked well all the time, we're starting to see options where they put, like, in brackets, this is bulk email, in brackets, this is from an external sender that you've never gotten email from before.
Yep.
Some of those like make you think a little bit before you open it. Like, oh, I'm so excited! I got an email from a friend that used to work at FedEx. This is great.
Well, and so we'll dive into a little bit of our findings here on this point. So we are, to our knowledge, and we stand to be corrected. The cool thing about doing really cool research is sometimes you're wrong, but to our knowledge and what we've been able to see in published papers, we're the first ever at scale, so several hundred organizations, 6,000 some people, to study, after people clicked on a phishing simulation, a survey. Why did you do it?
Yep.
And it turns out 50% of clicks are tied to two reasons. I was expecting something similar and it looked legitimate. And if we take a lesson from biology, a successful predator strategy used in biology is called mimicry. Look like something safe, look like something appealing, something you could eat, something you could procreate with. Animal kingdom, right? So phishing taps into two fundamental things. I was expecting it and it looked safe, but that's only half. Things get really interesting in the other 40%. And those 40% effectively are email autopilot, or the digital version of highway hypnosis. People were not even thinking. They were just motor reflexing. So at that point, the warnings, everything else, are not being processed at that level. And in fact, what happens is the more you start getting used to those warnings and it didn't turn out to be anything bad, then, you know, they are effective. There is research that says this is good. This is a good practice, but they aren't the be all to end all for the users in email autopilot. And
it's traffic light syndrome, right? I'm at the traffic light. It turns red. I have time to scroll. I clicked, light turns green, and I don't even know if I clicked on something I shouldn't have.
Exactly. And so, you know, it was funny in our research, you know, 26% of people were like, I don't even remember doing it.
Right.
And so what we need to do for that group is, after they fall victim to this, is making sure that they have good email habits. Your listeners are wondering, what the hell are good email habits?
Don't do email, people. Don't do it. Pick the habit.
Anybody working in IT, running an MSP, was like, hallelujah, I got to get off this drug.
That's right.
I hear you. But in all seriousness, it's take a break, right?
Yeah.
It's be intentional and mindful when you're in the inbox and you're like, okay, I've been at this for an hour. And I joked on the other show, the greatest gift that Microsoft could give all of us in IT in 2026 is not another Copilot. Read my lips, the Microsoft crew. No more chill it on Copilot. What I want is the coffee icon.
Well, and they know this. I mean, you're thinking of like, I think of like the car icons. Like you've obviously need to go and get coffee because you're kind of wandering in the lanes. But when Microsoft, Vista, or I think it's called Vita, basically Viva. You go in and
Viva Insights. Yeah.
And you go in there and it says, I'm suggesting that you create this as focus time and this is take a break time. And you're like, why did it pick those times of day? So I looked at that a lot closer and I realized it's to your point exactly. It's like it can kind of tell based on our interactions with the other suite of programs. If you're a hardcore 365 user, it does identify that. It does recognize that there's some merit to what you're saying of like, you need to take your eyes away from this to avoid the monotony that is becoming. And in most cases, I mean, unless you're getting truly spammed, and I want to make sure we talk about it. Like I did a not so much a study, but I had done some digging into the logic behind sort of the human emotion as it pertains to consumerism and the workplace.
Yep.
And we saw this happen largely during COVID, where the consumer side and the work side converged very heavily into work from home side. And it made me think about things like, you can't put MFA on my computer. I'm not allowing you to put a token thing on my phone. You're going to have to provide me with a token reader.
Yep.
And yet the reality is, in many cases, for their banking at home, they already had MFA, even if it wasn't great, whether it was text or otherwise. And maybe they even already had an app to do that. But when they go to the workplace, there wasn't any acknowledgement that there is some part of me that has a burden of responsibility to protect this organization with what I know and what I am capable of doing. Yet at home, we know that all of that responsibility falls on us, and we're constantly, making decisions based on recommendations. I don't know anybody that's like, man, I am not letting my bank force me to use a 4-digit PIN code to log into my bank account. They're like, I log into my bank and I use a 4-digit PIN. Then they go to work and they're like, I cannot allow you to make me use fill in the blank, right? I think that is starting to shift a little bit, but we're still struggling because we're under the impression that there are tools in place at work that are solving for this. And so that's why I wanted to come back to it. Like, when you talk about phishing simulation, by and large, and I've seen some that were looking pretty good because we can send sophisticated phishing simulations. But correct me if I'm wrong here. A lot of what's out there is still relying on this like antiquated, like look for typo squatting and look for misspellings. I'm like, I can create one for you right now by doing some social scraping that would probably have you get the email that says that is my bank. And I was expecting that just by looking at what you do on social media.
Right. So what you're talking about there is it looks legitimate, right? And now the interesting thing. So I don't have a computer science background. I have an arts background and a business background. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Information Communication Studies and an MBA.
And you can drive a tank.
And I can, well, I think my credentials have expired, but sadly,
maybe the tank too.
Trust me, the tank that I used to drive is now a museum piece, so it hits it smarts. But there's a thing in the human brain. It's called the anchoring bias. When you first learn something, the very first time you're presented with information, it gets precedence in your brain, even though you learn subsequent information. This is why political attack ads, when you have a new candidate, are so effective, because you're framing that person immediately on that side. So here's the downside of 20 years of security awareness and education that said typos, obvious sort of design flaws, etc. That became a heuristic, right? It's like the old virus signatures stored in the computer. And we are very efficient computers. We go, oh, the first reference, does it match this heuristic? Oh, no typo, means safe. And that's how the brain tries to be as efficient as possible. what we learned in research, and so there's great research out of the University of Chicago and a few other places, as well as in Canada, the Toronto Metropolitan University did a study about the importance of teaching emotional intelligence in the context of evaluating phishing. And what they found was it lowered click rates by up to 50%. And we replicated that experiment. And we built a training component into our remedial training that said, think about how this message might be intended to make you feel. And that's the heuristic. That's what you just need to pause and reflect. Now, that only works if someone's not an autopilot, so it's not a silver bullet. But when they actually use that approach, it does increase that resiliency. And I joke now, it's more likely that an email is human and legitimate if there's an honest to God typo than not now. I mean, my funniest story about heuristics, they're a university, and I'll anonymize the names of the institutions to protect the identity of the innocent and then the guilty equally. And they were getting targeted with a business email compromise. It's about a decade ago. And the finance team knew immediately it was not the university president. And do you know how they knew, Chris?
Because it didn't have any typos.
Because it said thank you, and their president was a jerk who never said thank you to anybody for anything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hell of a heuristic. Not necessarily a great point in that particular institution's leadership, but
you bring up a really good point. The play on behavior is often not captured well by the bad guys, right? So like if it's not normal for you to go out and buy gift cards, and you get an email from your boss saying to go buy gift cards, you should immediately be concerned about the email because that's never happened before. When the behavior is abnormal, that's the part that still floors me, is that people fall victim to that. But that got me thinking kind of to what you were describing, is that's because it plays on the urgency or the emotional. You said it with the what our brain captures first. I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. We know why social media largely exists, right?
Yep.
It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you might be on. We're going to ensure that you stay in this and start to rage click because you've been baited by the other side. Whether it's true or not isn't the point. The only premise behind it being there is to engage with you.
Yep.
And sadly, most of what started out to be truly how do you catch up with friends and colleagues has turned into take my opinion, my stance, or my belief system because I've catered to your emotional comfort zone.
Yeah. No, I mean, if allow me to just to dive into this a little bit, because like I'm a student of neuroscience. I'm learning a ton constantly. And so Netflix had a great documentary on this called The Social Dilemma, and really highlighted that when you see Meta, when you see X, when you see Instagram, when you see TikTok, you need to start seeing Marlboro. You need to start seeing big tobacco, because these folks are selling you the same thing, the release of dopamine. Tobacco did it with nicotine. Social media does it through the absorption of information. Our brains are wired to reward us for learning new things. Regardless of good or bad, the brain's like, here's your hit. This is new information. Maybe our odds of survival just increased. And then even more than that, the brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, when we feel connected to other humans. We get a hug, we get positive affirmation, all kinds of other things. These things are brain hormone releasing machines, and they don't care how they have to keep you hooked or what it does to your actual sense of self or the rates in young children of body dysmorphic disorder, depression, anxiety, etc. They are the new tobacco. And, criminals also understand at a biological level, far more than defenders, how to exploit the best and worst of humanity. And the downside is, and we talk about this a little bit in the report, and I've been increasingly vocal about this, we have to remember servant leadership from an IT perspective. Because it's very easy. My first IT job, other than building computers at the local computer shop, yes, Virginia, there used to be neighborhood computer shops where you build them and got to put the motherboard and the cards together and everything else. And I mean, most of the crowd probably listeners is like, yeah, this is how I got started in the business. But it wasn't just going to Dell.com and ordering a laptop. You got to build stuff. But after that, I my first IT job in university was a help desk. And I remember reading the Bastard Operator from Hell, and all of those old series, and you would
Yeah.
fall victim into the trap. And the trap is this: oh, the users are stupid. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's we call it the stupid user fallacy. You'll often more politely hear to is the people are the weakest link. They're not. Like,
They
honest to
played in
God,
that IT crowd was a great example of the way they did that.
exactly. And here's the thing. Like, no, let's just have a moment of real here. If every single person in your organization, other than your IT team, are stupid, cybersecurity is not your biggest problem. Not even close.
No,
Right?
no.
You've got a bad business. It's not going to end well. Get out now. But
Yeah,
they're
no one can
not.
spell it.
Right. They're brilliant. They're creative. They're amazing. They're risk taking. They need to be enabled. And when I say servant leadership from the IT perspective, and this applies to MSPs, how do we help people make good choices with technology so they can thrive, so they can grow their small business, they can grow their community, they can achieve their goals? And that is what an amazing privileged place that is, and a role that we get to play. You know,
Sure.
we are the tech version of the pastor, the bartender, of the coach, but we help deliver that through technology. And our job isn't to look down on the people. It's to say, here's how I can help you. And this is, by the way, 50% of MSPs do not offer any kind of security awareness offering to their customers.
Sure.
And they should,
Scary.
because not only does it help reduce the risk, you're literally educating your customer about how you can help them in the future. And it's so much better than the 3 a.m. panic call from the ransomware and
Sure.
hardware
Yeah.
store.
Well, isn't it the question of the answer of IT to someone who obviously is not in IT should never be the initial answer is no. It's help me understand what you're trying to accomplish so we can figure out if it's something that we can support. If it's not something we can support, then maybe we have some misalignment. But it's very rare that an employee is asking IT or an MSP for something that doesn't really make sense. They just might not be phrasing it in a way that is, if you're into ones and zeros, you might not capture the the social element of what they're asking for.
100%. I heard once from somebody else, so it's not my original idea, although I can't remember who said it. I loved it. It was about moving from the Department of No to the Department of Know-how.
Right.
And we're the folks who come for the know-how. So
Yeah.
how do I do this? And so this where security awareness is important. The biggest things about our research is that we traditionally fell into the trap, stupid user fallacy, or a PEBCAC, problem exists between keyboard and chair.
Keyboard and
Haha.
chair. Yep.
And then if we got beyond that, we fell into a different trap. I'm going to trend them into submission. I'm going to
Right.
no trend, no gain, more and more training, like Arnold, right?
Yeah.
But for and like guys, you can overdo it. There are training related injuries when we're building the body up, and there are
Yeah.
training related mishaps that come with cyber. You got to balance these things out. And the key thing isn't just knowledge. It's delivering the right knowledge at the right time to build skills and maintain vigilance. And our research on this is incredibly sharp.
Relevancy to the person going through the learning process is a big piece of that, right? Like the training for your receptionist might be completely different than the training for a CEO. They're probably seeing very different types of content, for one. I mean, we see this a lot now where you hear I will never communicate to you this way. And this is like, the mass FYI. I remember right after, we got our new CEO at GTIA, they had to go into Slack and, to all staff and say, hey, I'm not going to send you a text message and ask if you're available.
Yep.
Like, that's very weird, like out of left field. I've never texted you before, and now I'm texting you asking if you've got 5 minutes.
Well, and it's kind of funny. So in December, we have employees in Ontario. So we're based in New Brunswick, Canada, and we have employees in Ontario. And I had a chance to catch up with a new hire that we had.
Is that near Greenland? That's right there in Greenland, right?
Well, the New Brunswick, we're on the East Coast. Yes, we're getting uncomfortably close to Greenland. I mean, we're there. But Good news is we can just remove our name from most maps and we should be safe.
There you go.
Most people have never heard of New Brunswick other than New Brunswick, New Jersey, but we're the really
That's
cool
fair.
folks that gets to hang out with Maine. And by the way, American listeners, if you've never gone to Maine, I mean, obviously come visit Canada. We do enjoy the tourism dollars, but if you haven't gone to Maine, their license plate, by the way, says Vacation Land, and it's spectacular. Anyway, getting back on a point. Where was I going with that? We were talking about so I was visiting a new employee, and he'd only been hired for a couple of months. And I warned him at dinner and said, by the way, at some point as a rite of passage, you're going to get an email pretending to be me, most likely from Gmail, asking for your cell phone number. I will never do that. I don't need your cell phone number. We can access it in any different ways, and I'll get a hold of you through certain other means. And Chris, I kid you not, while we were having supper that night, the young guy got the phishing email. And
Oh,
I mean,
geez.
it's Matrix like moments, right? You're like, wow, I called that one. And it's a little
Just slide
become a
over
little
the
bit of a,
pills to take. Here's the
yeah,
blue or the red. Yeah.
and it's funny. It's because it's become a bit of a rite of passage in the company. It's like, have you gotten the CEO email yet? Oh, I'll be like, what am I not worthy? Like, anyway,
Right.
not that I want to encourage criminals, but
I just love that he sends it from his personal Gmail account. That's great.
yeah. So I mean, it's funny, and we've had attackers like, so obviously they watch LinkedIn like a hawk. And
Sure.
we've had new employees start, and they knew that we've got good email filters, and we train and we watch the work emails. So they knew the kid had just graduated from the local university. So they sent the fish to his university email account. And
Nice.
that was, you can tell, they're raising their game.
Well, it's interesting. So getting into the education side, one of the things that I think is still problematic is that we're so caught up in checking the box to getting education around, say, security awareness training, tied specifically to complying with a set of standards, regulatory frameworks, et cetera.
Yep.
But we're only doing it from the checkbox perspective, not how do we make these employees resilient to those types of simulations. And the reason why I go back to that, the original premise of the research, does phishing simulation, does that concept work? I still have mixed feelings about it because the reality is I want people to report accurately phishing.
Yep.
Right? So like if it's phishing simulation and I have to click one button, and if it's real phishing, I'm supposed to click the other button, or maybe I click both, same button for both. It really doesn't matter. The thing that is not seen well or not seemingly done well, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is it's not praised enough. Like, hey, you found this. And I saw that in some of the research that you published was like, man, there's real, if you validate me once, I probably will do it again. You continuously validate me, I will continuously keep reporting.
Yeah. So we've got the receipts. First of all, it should be one button. And that's something that in the IT world you can do.
Sure.
And most modern platforms will play nicely with other providers, and there's lots of different ways to do it. We've built a single unified button. You think it's a fish, and say you're a Microsoft 365 shop and you've got their Defender portal and all that stuff. You train the user to click the fish button. We ask some questions. What do you think this is? They don't have to complete it, but a lot do. And did you interact with it? And if they say it's a fish and they interacted with it, we can build escalation rules, pardon me, using our product so that they actually get alerted inside the IT org. Okay, Dave just reported something. It looks fishy. He thinks it's a fish, and he said he opened it. All right, let's dig into this one. Let's triage it. We helped one regional telco stop 4 credential compromises because of that. So we can make the effort that they're doing valuable through that. The second thing that's really important, and you hit on this, you gotta trigger that dopamine. So in most phishing programs, still to this day, there are 2 possible states of play. Fish comes in, click on it, fail. Fish comes in, didn't click on it, nothing happened. I ignored it,
Right? Yeah.
Right? Or fish comes in, I reported it, and I never get anything for it. Maybe I do get a small little pop-up thank you. but it's not recorded as an opportunity for me to earn points or to redeem myself. And this is really important. When we launched Beauceron in 2017, we didn't have this redemption arc built into our game.
Oh, sure.
And a bank came to us and they said, listen, we get that your model is like a driver's license. Someone clicks on the fish, they're not getting the points back on this risk score that you show them. That's an important part. We created this personal risk score that they can see that's based on their knowledge and behaviors. Said, and I get why you didn't want to give them their points back. You want them to rebuild trust, et cetera. I said, but that's not how humans work. They want a redemption arc. So we modified our system in 2018 so that if you went back and reported the fish, even after you clicked on it, you would get your points back. If you did your remedial training and did well, you could even potentially end up with a better score than when you started. Because the first goal of the program is don't click the link. Okay, great. Second one is if you make a mistake, tell somebody about it. Last year, 2024, in 2025, we saw the 2024 Verizon data breach report. And in there, they had this fascinating metric, Chris, and it really captured our attention. It was, what is the percentage of people who will admit to making a mistake? And they called it the post-click report rate, or PCRR. And it's even more important than report rate. Report rate is people who just reported the fish, and that's the win condition, and that's a good resiliency metric. But post-click report rate is the people you need to report it the most. Will they? Do they feel psychologically safe enough to do it? And what Verizon said was only 1 in 10 people will do it when they make a mistake, on average, median.
Mm-hmm.
We went back and checked our user set of hundreds of thousands of people, millions of simulations, and by God, it was 1 in 10. Ooh.
Yeah.
We made some changes in March to the default templates we use as part of the game to encourage people to go back and report, because it was kind of a hidden feature to get your points back. People could realize it.
Only going and finding an Easter egg. After you know there's one that exists, you go back and look for it.
Exactly. And so instead of having it as an Easter egg, we said, listen, you're going to get a bunch of points back, even though you clicked, if you just go back and report. And our average post-click report rate went from 1 in 10 to 1 in 4.
Jeez.
And that was huge.
So I have 2 that come to mind. One is, drives me nuts when your training expires. And so the training in your dashboard for training, you can't click on it and take it because it expired. You didn't get to it in the 2-week or 30 days or whatever it was. To me, that's problematic, because if I'm willing to go click on it at any time, it should be available for me to take it. The second one is, and this is, I think, the biggest one, is that I think most people have never really been educated on when they do report something, especially when it's the real deal, right?
Yep.
Is that the platforms or the tools that most organizations use today means that they can go and say, hey, that was reported, it got through our defenses, but because of their action, we can go ensure that no one else can ever click on it, because we can remove it with the snap of a finger.
Yep. And that's why what was interesting, and it's still about 1 in 10 organizations are providing feedback back to the end user of non-simulated stuff. And we built this AI tool, because one of the cool things, we have this customer, 100,000 person global bank. We implemented the gamified experience through our platform. We increased their reporting by 99% in the first 90 days. Wow. And now they get 50,000 reported emails on average per month, which is crazy. And there was no way in
question, how good is their filter?
Well, this organization would get tens of millions of emails per day.
Right, because 100,000 plus employees, doing the math on that at 50,000 per week, you're probably getting into the probability of a percentage that get through. You have a pretty high percentage of those actually becoming reported on and removed, which is now training. Sadly, it's benefiting them, but it's also benefiting more or less the rest of the world, right? Because that email, if it's a real phishing, odds are they weren't the only organization that reported on it, or they're not the only organization that would have potentially gotten that email.
So yes, that's like the sheepdog effect squared, right? Not just protecting me, but I'm protecting other organizations. So we did the math on this. If they were to put humans to it, they would need a 20-person team, 24/7 shifts, etc., to respond in a timely fashion. We built an AI triage tool, not from the IT perspective, because there were other good tools like Defender or others that were already
Yeah.
doing the management of that side. But we built a tool from the response back to the end user perspective. And so now when people report things, they get automated feedback that can be tuned granular based on the characteristics the email scores by the organization or by their MSP. You
Interesting.
can manage multiple organizations at the same time. So now they get meaningful feedback because 1 in 4 reported reported emails are legitimate emails. The funniest
Yeah.
one I've ever seen, again, I'm picking on the banking sector, but it was a banking regulator. It was one of those kind of money laundering
Yeah.
banking regulators. And some of the employees like, it's totally a fish. It's like, no, you really, really, really want to respond to this federal agency because
Yeah.
they do not carry a soft stick here. They get pretty riled up. So, but we're able to put a rule in. If it's from this, based on these characteristics, here's the note you send. Call so-and-so. We probably want to dig into this, which is great.
Nice.
And when you give people feedback on real reported emails, they report 60% plus more. If you don't, they stop reporting. This is not a
Interesting.
rewarded behavior.
Right. Which going back to your mascot or the name representing the sheepdog is kind of like dogs are kind of the same way, right? If they don't get rewards, they generally don't want to learn new tricks.
Well, and yeah, and people are amazing, but we are at the end of the day efficient. I know, like, we like to joke in IT that we can be lazy, but laziness is just in some respects the ultimate expression of efficiency. Like my CTO,
Right.
if I annoyed him with too many things of repetitive tasks we have to do, eventually he automates it. And some can say, well, that's
Yes.
being lazy, but it's incredibly efficient. So, that's
Where do I
that's part of the game.
prioritize my time? Yeah.
Right.
So
And if I'm not getting feedback, I'm going to stop doing that activity.
interesting. I like that. I think that's true in like professional development and a lot of other areas where, going back to the efficiency and lazy, if I'm not getting feedback or encouraged to continue on that path, I'm either doing something wrong, so I should stop, or it's not important to the organization, so I should find something else to consume my time. We have run through our time for this week's episode, but before I let you go, a couple things. One, what is whether it's last year, depending on how many books you read, or it's been more recent than that, what is a book that you would recommend to the audience? And it doesn't have to be IT related. It can be fiction. It does not. There's no rules on the book. Just whether or not you think it would be something that our audience would listen to.
Everyone in the MSP space should read, and I literally have it on my desk. Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. There are two reasons that I think everyone should read this. Number one, it will help you in your relationships with your customers. So business orientation here right off the bat. This will help you help your customers, and not from a manipulative standpoint, but you'll understand how to get your points across and how to be successful in those conversations. And it's really good. You can use it for bad.
It's influence, not manipulation.
It's influence, not manipulation. But these same principles are used by social engineers. So you are teaching yourself to understand better some of the levers that are used by bad actors with bad intention. But there's
Nice.
a bonus. If you want to truly understand how vulnerable agentic AI is, you need to read this book. And then you need to read a paper. And he was like, oh my God, man, what time do you think I have? No, trust me, it's just one academic paper you read this year. Read
Homework
this paper.
on this show.
Homework on the show. The paper is called Call Me a Jerk, and it's by the University of Pennsylvania. And what they did, and Chris, this is mind-blowing. They were able to break ChatGPT 4.0's embedded guardrails by using these manipulation or influence techniques. And they got it to call the user a jerk, which is strictly forbidden. It's meant to be a sycophant, never an insulter. They got it also to give the recipe for lidocaine. And what you need to understand about agentic AI is it is one attacker away from sweet talking it into popping any device. So be very wary if it's built on a large language model. What these researchers have said is absolutely, irrefutably, and will always be susceptible to these manipulation techniques. Full stop, mic drop, period.
Yeah, I think I'm going to turn my computer off now. David, where can people reach out to you if they have questions, or maybe point them to where they can go put their link in or put their email address in and get access to that paper?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, it's at www.beauceronsecurity.com, and you'll see it on the main page. If you are tired, and we are not like that other company that will relentlessly like never refuse to take no for an answer and sell you, like you know. But if you're traumatized by that no knowledgeable experience, you can just reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect with me there. The secret clue that keeps the North Korean hackers out is David at Beauceron Security is my email address. So just don't tell the rest of the gang in North Korea. But you can connect with me on LinkedIn, say you heard me on the show, and I will send you the PDF of the report. You'll make my marketing team sad because they love to track these metrics, but I get MSPs. And
it could be worse. I mean, sad's not terrible. I mean, sad's sad. I mean, it's not like it doesn't make them violent. I'm good with that.
No.
So
no. Yeah. We got really, really good people. But I hope if you read the report, you want to have this conversation with them. There's a ton of data, as you alluded to. The biggest thing I just want to end off with this, and hopefully maybe you can trim some of the parts of the episode. No trimming. All right. Well, I just want to add this bonus part. You heard a lot of headlines last year from August on that phishing simulations don't work. The research this was based on is fundamentally flawed in that interpretation. What that research actually said and showed is that relying on post-click landing pages alone as the delivery mechanism for remedial education doesn't work. No kidding. The average time on a post-click landing page is like 11 seconds.
Yep.
And so TLDR, people don't read, don't learn. Thanks, researchers. And so in our report, we've got a conclusive takedown of all that. Bad training delivered badly doesn't work. You heard it here first. Good training delivered well does work, but it's never a silver bullet. It works with the technology tools.
I'm gonna argue that bad training delivered well is still bad training.
Yeah, no, it's got to be good training delivered well.
Perfect.
And so yes, you can overtrain, by the way, and you'll see that in the report. If you overtrain, you actually don't get all the goals that you want to achieve.
Well, there you have it. For those of you that have been listening, this has been an episode of MSP 1337. Thanks, and have a great week.